What's going on, guys? My name is Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another edition of Mofobo Network Presents here on YouTube. Thank you guys, as always, for taking some time out of your day to check out this video. Now, normally you guys are accustomed to seeing me talk pretty much to myself and to you guys, but today I thought I'd try something a little bit different. Today, I have a very special guest sitting right beside me. It is the man, the myth, the legend, Pops. Pop, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so honored to be featured on your YouTube channel.
Well, we're definitely happy to have you on. And we're going to talk about a handful of different things in different sports, because obviously a lot of the sports here in the United States are coming back within the next week or so. Some sports have already started, Major League Soccer, National Women's Soccer League. We saw, things like that. Just a handful of different sports we've already seen. But we're going to talk about some of the, I guess you would call major sports here in the United States. And we're going to start with baseball. Okay. Now, Major League Baseball officially starts on July 23rd, so not very far from now. And one of the teams that'll be involved on July 23rd is one of your favorite teams, the New York Yankees. So let's look at it this way. First of all, with the Yankees, last year, they got all the way to the American League Championship Series, and once again were defeated by the, now that we know they cheated, Houston Astros. Pops, my question to you is basically this. What are you looking at for this upcoming 60-game season for the Yanks?
Well, my prediction is that they'll win 39 out of 60 games. I don't think that's unrealistic. Clearly on paper, they're the best team in Major League Baseball, I think. Mm-hmm. There are some really good teams out there. I've always liked Houston's lineup. I think they're very good. I'm not sold on the Dodgers. And I'm not sold on teams like the Rays. Unfortunately, the Red Sox, who had a wonderful lineup, has decided to, kind of go into hibernation this year. Yep. So, and I'm with the people that think Toronto is a big wild card. So, we'll see how it goes. One of the things is that the Yankees traditionally have started slower. Mm-hmm. Then they finish up. Yeah, normally, even in that famous '98 season, they started out off something like 2-4. I think that they'll be all right. Yeah. I think they have the pitching. They've already proven that they have players that they can somehow miraculously access to pick up the slack when there's the injury bug. I have my disagreements with them. I don't think that Judge is batting in the proper position in the batting order. Right. But, and I think that, Stanton should be further down in the order. Mm. But, they have enough talent at the plate to make it happen. As far as the mound goes, Garrett Cole is a tremendous addition, obviously. Yeah. I think that there are other pitchers such as the Big Maple and
Paxton. Yeah.
Paxton.
James Paxton.
Well, Paxton is Maple, and I'm pumped to see Jordan Montgomery come back.
I know that's one of your favorite guys.
Oh yeah, he is very much so.
Yeah.
I think he reminds me in a way, and it's just, I guess, stereotyping, but he reminds me in a way of Andy Pettitte.
Really?
That big left-hander, that can just gobble you up a lot of innings. Okay. The injury to Tanaka is worrisome. But we'll see. We'll see what happens when they get started. Yeah. I, for one, I hate to say it, I don't think that the season is actually going to finish. I think that somewhere in the middle, it will be shut down because of COVID-19 and the spread. I just think that's the way it's going to be. But whatever. And then, there are other teams, and we'll get to talk about them.
Yeah.
That, could start fast. And if they start fast, and they have started fast in previous seasons, who knows where it could go. And the postseason, as always, is, anybody's guess.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Pretty much the last question I have with the Yankees is simply this. This is a guy that, pretty much our whole family likes to talk about quite often. What do you think Tyler Wade's batting average is going to be this season? just out of curiosity, what is Tyler Wade's batting average? Do you think we have still yet to see the real Tyler Wade?
Yes, we have still yet to see the real Tyler Wade. Actually, no, I think we have seen the real Tyler Wade, and he's nothing to write home about.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you get anything over 240, you know, you're doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he has shown flashes of power, and he presumably has some speed.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see where it goes. You know, Tyler Wade is one of those guys that I don't understand why he's still on the team, but that's beside the point. So, you know, It is what it is.
Yeah. I made a semi bet with a friend to say if Tyler Wade bets at least 250 this season, I will buy his shirt. But it can't be like 6 at bats where he's batting 500. He has to have at least like 30 at bats or something like that.
I think the Yankees are in love with him, and he'll get those at bats even if he's batting well under the Mendoza line.
Yeah, but now we're going to talk about another team that you're a fan of, and that is the Fighting Phils, the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Phillies had somewhat of a disappointing season last year. A lot of hype, obviously, bringing in Bryce Harper, one of the top players in baseball, and he had a pretty productive season nonetheless. But I think under former manager Gabe Kapler, the team just never seemed to get off on the right track. Their starting pitching at the bottom half was definitely a problem, and they tried to fix that by getting Zach Wheeler from the Mets. They signed him in the offseason. They also brought in a Yankee favorite from the fans, Didi Gregorius. They also brought in Joe Girardi as the manager. My question to you simply, is this. Number one, are the Phillies one of the favorites to win the NL East, and are they possibly a World Series contender this year?
Well, I do think that they are contenders in the East. I think that basically all the teams in the NL East, except for maybe the Marlins, have a legitimate shot at it,
right,
including the Mets. I am not that big of a believer in the world champion Nationals. The Braves have shown tremendous ability to rebuild quickly, and they have a really considerable team. But I think that contrary to other Phillies fans, I don't blame too much of what happened last year on Kapler. I think the real big issue was that Kutch got hurt early in the season.
He did.
And he brought all the intangibles of leadership and cohesiveness and all those things that, I think if he had not gotten hurt so early, he would have helped bring that team together, and they would have been contenders. They would have been contenders. So I expect them to be contenders this year, barring, of course, injury. Pitching is
suspect.
Yeah, but
Zach Eflin. In particular.
Your favorite guy.
Zach Eflin's my favorite. It's my favorite Philly.
But despite that, the rotation is not any worse, in my viewpoint, than anybody else. I mean, you've got the Mets have Jake DeGrom, and I'm not going to sit there and tell you that Aaron Nola is just as good, but he's competitive with that.
Very good.
And after that, what do the Mets have that the Phillies don't?
Well, I mean, they still have Noah Syndergaard.
And, who is
and they brought in New Jersey, and the Mets also brought in New Jersey native Rick Porcello, who won the Cy Young, I think, like 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
They brought in Michael Wacha, who used to pitch for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So they definitely, I think that they did a good job, and we'll talk about the Mets in a minute. Okay. I think they did a solid job of bringing in some solid arms. No guys that's going to blow you away. But clearly, at the top of the rotation with the Mets, it's going to be DeGrom. I think at the top of the rotation with the Phillies, it's clearly Aaron Nola.
Yeah.
I think there is going to be that competition between Zach Wheeler and Arrieta for the second spot.
I think Wheeler's got it.
You think Wheeler's got
it?
What about Vince Velasquez? Do you think he'll bounce back from his injury last year? Do you think he'll have the same productive season that he had the year before?
I think Pivetta is going to be more of a factor.
Nick Pivetta. That's a name that people don't talk about enough. That's an interesting.
What can I tell you?
Yeah, no, I mean, he definitely. I think he's due to have a really good season, and maybe a 60-game season for not just him, but a lot of pitchers would certainly help. So, I think with the Phillies, it's kind of a situation where they have a new manager in Joe Girardi.
Well, I wanted to talk about that.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's the one downside that I see for the team. I am not a big Joe Girardi fan. As a person, I am. I think he's a great person.
You've met him in person.
Met him in person.
We've had the pleasure of meeting him
in
Baltimore.
And also, a story that very few people know is after the Yankees won the World Series in 2009, on his drive home, he actually helped out another motorist in distress.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know about this.
Oh, yeah. I think it was on the Cross Westchester Parkway, but I'm not sure.
Okay, cool.
But in any event, yeah, and he helped the emergency team get there and the whole deal. So he's a really good person.
Yeah.
He's just way too. I don't even want to say conservative. He's like too mechanical or something in his managing. He has hard and fast rules that just don't make any sense. I want to say if you get to third, watch out because Girardi's going to bring out the nails and the hammer and nail you to third base.
Well, that's your boy Robbie Thompson. Right there.
Well, who's the bench coach of the Phillies?
Robbie Thompson.
Thank you very much. So I think for a while the Phillies fans will be really happy that Kapler is not there anymore. But once it sinks in that so many games that the Phils could have gone 4-1 were just kicked away, unfortunately, by management. But we'll see what happens, We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And, I mean, you look at the Phillies schedule, very similar to the Yankees, where they're pretty much playing either National League or American League East teams. MLB wanted to keep it more regional.
Yeah.
The Phillies clearly play in a very tough division in National League East. I think they could have a lot of success against the bottom half of the American League East.
Oh, most of the teams, yes.
Yeah. And I think, one guy that I think is going to have a lot of success playing in Philadelphia, albeit it's on a one-year deal, is the former New York Yankee shortstop, Didi Gregorius.
Well, Didi Gregorius is a very underrated player. He was my favorite Yankee while he was there.
He wasn't when he first got to the team, that's for sure.
No, that's true. I used to call him Doo-Doo instead of Didi. But then he won me over. He won me over like many a Yankee that came in to replace a legend.
Yeah.
It's very tough on them, but, just like Tino made a lot of people forget the great Don Mattingly, Tino Martinez, that is.
Yeah.
Didi played a very creditable shortstop, and I was sad to see him go. I understand why, but I was sad to see him go, and I think he could do really well for the Phillies if the Phillies allow him to play more like he played for the Yankees than how they had him play in Arizona. Granted, it was earlier in his career and all that stuff.
Well, I think obviously being reunited with Joe Girardi, he will, in one way or another, be allowed to play the way that he's capable. I'm interested to see, since the way that, Girardi was so firm on having Judge bat second, I'm worried about, is someone like Bryce Harper or Rhys Hoskins going to end up batting second in the lineup? Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but it very well could. I don't really know what Joe Girardi's plans are with this team. I had a chance to watch their inter-squad scrimmage yesterday, and I got to tell you, honestly, Pop, that the Phillies, it's going to be a really big question mark with how their lineup's going to be constructed. It's really hard to tell right now, and especially in a 60-game season, a lot's going to change. So the Phillies are going to be an intriguing team. Now, another team that – go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say they have, in my opinion, they have all the pieces, and a lot went wrong last year, and if some of it goes right – like Bryce Harper coming out of his shell and Kutch being there the whole year, and one of the pitchers besides Nola stepping up, and Hoskins and
Segura.
Well,
Gene
I
Segura?
was thinking more in terms of I can't remember now. But in any event, they could put it together. They could be a pretty serious team.
They certainly can. Now, another team that probably has, I would say, out of the three teams that you're a fan of, the lowest expectations, but could very well, just like any other team, really make a run at it this year, is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Ironically, I'm wearing, I believe this is your shirt,
that is
if I'm not
shirt.
mistaken. I am wearing your
Thank
Clemente shirt, and I did wear this on another video where I talked about why I thought Roberto Clemente's number should be retired.
Should be retired everywhere. That is true. I agree with that. When you said that, I said yes. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So let's look at the Pirates. The Pirates obviously moved on from not only their manager, but they also moved on from their general manager after many years. And now they've kind of started what some people would consider a new era, quote unquote, of Pirates baseball. They brought in the bench coach from the Minnesota Twins, Derek Shelton. They have some solid young arms. Joe Musgrove is going to be a guy that I think is going to be at the top of rotation. Jameson Tyon, I mean, this kid cannot buy a break. He's had several surgeries. He did have cancer.
Yes.
I mean, he's really fought through hell just to get to the point where he can be a consistent pitcher. You have Josh Bell, who arguably is one of the top first basemen in the National League. And you still have Gregory Polanco, who El Cafe could still be a very solid player. And I think this could be that year that he could break out. So, Pops, basically, my question to you is, what are your expectations for the Buccos?
I have no expectations. They are a big question mark to me. The team sounds a lot better to hear you just describe it.
I'd like to give the positivity to the people.
Yes, and look, on more than one occasion, even during the 20-year stretch when they didn't have a winning season, on more than one occasion, they came out of the gate pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
And they could do it again.
Yep.
And in a 60-game season, they might be in the thick of things at the end of 60 games as opposed to fading in August.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a new era. I was really pumped when they got in Clint Hurdle.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it worked out. Bud Selig's wet dream of a one-game playoff came back to bite them on multiple occasions. I think they were a far better team than the Giants that they lost to. Cubs. I thought they were a far better team than the Cubs and they lost to. But it was, in one game you throw your race against the other race or whatever, and whoever's on wins that one game. This is why they never had one-game playoffs in baseball since, the 1870s. But, Bud danced to his own drummer, and that's all I want to say about him.
Yeah, I mean, it was frustrating for a couple of years how the Pirates just seemed to be one of the better teams in baseball, but they would constantly lose out in the one-game playoff because whenever the Pirates were really good, the rest of the NL Central was really good. And whenever they were bad, the NL Central, even now, the NL Central is not great. You still have the Cardinals. Then you have the Cubs, but you also have the Brewers who have, over the last 2 years, gotten really good and I think are the favorites to win that division. Right, and the Pirates, they're a team that could really just surprise everybody.
And the Reds are very improved.
Yes, and the Pirates have been known for the last handful of years to get off to a really good start and, kind of fade towards the end. And maybe in a 60-game season, that may not happen as much. It might be easier for them to get off to a fast start. Plus, they're playing either NL Central teams or American League Central teams, and the AL Central, in my opinion, is probably the weakest division in baseball. The Tigers are no longer good. Yeah. The Twins are obviously the top, the top of the top of that division. The Indians are okay at best. The Royals have been a shell of what they used to be back in 2015. Yeah. So I think they have a really good chance of winning a lot of games that maybe people don't expect them to win. Well, and one guy that I want to see do well this year that I think has the makings to be really good is Kevin Newman. He really had a productive season last year, really surprised some people with how talented he really is. And I think now that he's, one of the top, I wouldn't say prospects, but definitely one of the top guys on the team, I think he's going to have more of a breakout campaign in 2020.
That could very well be. I mean, they're a big question mark to me. The one thing that I do think a 60-game season benefits them is that, of course, the Pirates are notorious for selling all their assets off at the trade deadline, which is, a good 90 games, 100 games into the season normally. This year, what is it, 30 games before they ever
I think it's like 35, 36. Yeah. I think it's a little bit around that.
If they get off to a good start, the temptation may be less. Neil Huntington is no longer involved, right?
No, he got fired.
So
they brought in the Tampa Bay Rays assistant general manager. His name escapes me at the moment.
So we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see whether they have a different philosophy. Yeah. It was so hard to watch, so many players go to trade deadline. I mean, it was Sanchez and Jack Wilson, and
Jason Bay.
Jason Bay, when he was good.
When he was good.
Right.
when he was good, yeah.
I'm a little surprised they didn't try to shop Kutch, but of course they were in the middle of that little scheme where they were winning 90-plus games.
Right. They eventually did. But after,
after they tried to get him to quit, basically.
Right. Right, exactly. They, by the time he actually got traded, his value wasn't the same.
Right.
And then he went to the Giants.
They did everything they could to do to make it.
Right. And then it's frustrating because it's something that I've said on this YouTube channel and the podcast, everything is that the interest of the owners is not the same as the interest of the fans. And Bob Nutting has lived up to that statement for a very long time since he took over ownership of the Pirates. And it's frustrating. And hopefully maybe this year with a lot more younger players who don't have as much experience in the MLB, but will this year, especially also because the rosters have expanded to, I think, 60 players. Just guys that you can put
30.
in. Well, it's 30 for like the main roster, and then you have another 30 players that you can put
instead
in.
of 40.
Right.
Right.
In case somebody gets COVID-19 or gets hurt, things like that.
Which is always.
So the Pirates are going to be a team that is going to have very low expectations, and hopefully they can, have a really productive season. And who knows, Pop? Maybe they can make a run that could surprise the entire MLB.
They're in a tough situation because they have the Steelers, which has had a lot of success in the last several years, and the Penguins.
Don't get me started with
and
that.
It's tough. Excuse me. It's tough to compete against or to burrow your way back in.
Right.
People forget because it was so long ago. But in the late '80s, early '90s, the Pirates were forced to be reckoned with.
They were,
and they could have very easily gotten into the World Series 3 times in a row there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to be, and that's the thing. So, with a 60-game season, maybe to have a little bit of luck, maybe they're in the thick of things. They make the playoffs. They go beyond one round in the playoffs. Hey, that could be the impetus that they need.
Without a doubt. Now, the last team I want to talk about, now you're obviously not a fan of this team. I think, matter of fact, you probably despise them quite.
I do not despise.
You don't despise them? I feel like you do sometimes,
No.
but you do laugh at a lot.
Pity them.
Right. You do laugh at them a lot. And there's one thing about this team that I want to specifically talk to you because it's been the talk of the past 48 hours. And we're going to be talking about the New York Mets. And basically what we're going to talk about is this. Last night it was reported by, I think it's called Sportica, which is an article, which is basically a reporting company for, I guess just finance and sports in general. And they announced that there are only 3, I guess you would say, groups that are now in a position to possibly buy the Mets. It was originally 5, but now it's down to 3. The first one is billionaire Steve Cohen, who is reportedly at this time reportedly worth $13 billion. He is a diehard Mets fan.
Yep.
He tried buying the Mets back in February. The Wilpons doing what they always do, tried to change everything at the end, and the deal fell through.
Right.
This reported deal is he wants to pay $2 billion for the Mets and $2 billion for SNY, even though SNY is not technically available for sale. The Wilpons also own SNY.
Right.
The next group is I guess you would say a little bit more of a publicity type of move, and that is with Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez. I did mention on the podcast yesterday, if you haven't go check that out, please go and do so. They have several professional athletes who are playing and also who are retired now that are involved. Brian Urlacher, DeMarco Murray, Travis Kelce, Bradley Beal, Mason Plumlee, guys like that are actually, involved in the group as well. And their bid at this point is $1.7 million. Billion, yes. Correct, thank you. And the last group is the group of David Blitzer and Joshua Harris, who are the owners of the Philadelphia 76ers and the New Jersey Devils. And their bid at the time of this recording is $1.2 billion. Now, something that I should mention also that the New York Post made is that the COO of the Mets, Jeff Wilpon, said that if the bid from Jennifer Lopez and A-Rod is very close to being one of the top bids, that they're going to go with the A-Rod and J-Lo. So, Pops, basically my question to you is this. What the hell is going on?
I don't think anybody knows. I don't even think the Wilpons know. What was it, 2, 3, 4 months ago, it looked like a done deal. Steve Cohen was going to take him. Everybody was relieved by that, and yet somehow the Wilpons found a way to screw it all up. Obviously the A-Rod deal and the J-Lo deal is all about celebrity. They both have, well, J-Lo has strong connection to New York. A-Rod was born, I believe, in New York, but he's more connected to Miami.
Yeah.
Now, A-Rod, whether you like him or not,
which I do,
is very, very knowledgeable about baseball.
Yeah.
And I believe the Mets had for a while Jessica Mendoza, his broadcast partner.
Yes, she was an advisor.
Yes,
she was
to
an
the
advisor.
team.
Yep.
And I wish he would bring her back because she's very underrated. She's very, very good. And with that kind of knowledge, maybe they got something going there. But, I thought Terry Collins was very knowledgeable, and they didn't do right by him. Willie Randolph, of course, they didn't do right by him. So, honestly, I think the Wilpons should just say, look, let's do a deal with Steve Cohen. He keeps coming back no matter how poorly we treat him. I don't think the offer of the Devils owners is credible, very frankly.
Well, they should be focusing on the other two teams.
And I think the A-Rod J-Lo deal would just be a circus.
Yeah.
Which, there's no such thing as bad publicity and all that other stuff. But I think Cohen is much more of a passionate Mets fan.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the right move.
Yeah.
But what do I know? I'm not a Mets fan.
Right. Well, the two things that I would leave from this is number one, Steve Cohen made it clear that one of his dreams is to own the team.
Yes.
To own the Mets. Yes. He's already an 8% holder in the team already.
Right.
And the original deal was that he was going to have his percentage of ownership go up to 80% over 5 years.
Right.
So that was the original deal. This time pretty much Cohen is like, no, I want everything. Like, you guys are gone. And see, so my argument...
A lot of fans that are in favor.
Well, that's the thing. My argument is simply that the Wilpons don't care about the money. They care about continuing to have some form of power over the team. That's, to me, the argument as to why it fell through the first time and why they're not so keen on Steve Cohen. I think the reason they're more keen on A-Rod and J-Lo is because I think A-Rod and J-Lo's group might actually give the Wilpons a little bit of control
and
even after buying the team.
Right,
exactly.
I agree.
And if you're, at least with A-Rod's standpoint, you would say, wouldn't he kind of know by this point that the Wilpons are no good and they are not going to be, they shouldn't be involved anymore? You kind of hope that. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be something that it makes more sense to go with Cohen because he just has so much money. And I was listening to Joe Beningo on WFAN yesterday, and he was saying, look, I would probably prefer Steve Cohen because he has the money, and he said he's going to be spending it to try to help the Mets win. And that's something that Mets fans have not heard.
He's a serious fan and not...
Right.
But look, I've been a Yankees fan since before the Mets came into existence.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the Mets kind of fumble around.
Right.
And they've had 2 or 3 miracles along the way.
Yep.
People forget the 73 Mets were somewhat of a miracle. Maybe
I feel like that's more of a miracle.
More so than 69. Yeah, I agree.
With old Willie Mays on the team, correct?
Yes, with an ancient Willie Mays in center field, and they still won 7 games against what was a dynasty in those days, which was, the A's. But in any event, I would really like to see. I don't hate the Mets. I do pity them in a way because I think their fan base is very passionate. I think they're somewhat knowledgeable. I think they're a little brain damaged with respect to the Yankees, but that's all right. We'll go from there.
Yeah.
Clearly, as a Phillies fan, I don't wish them well. But I would like to see Mets fans get an owner that is worthy of them. And I don't think the Wilpons are right.
Well, the Wilpons certainly have not been that. And we'll see because the Wilpons said that they're trying to sell the team by the end of 2020. And we'll see if they live up to that. But, the Wilpons have have gone back on their word numerous times over the years.
Once. That's correct.
More than once. So, let's see how it goes. Now, my last question to you, Pop, just talking about baseball, is simply this. I just have one question for you. Do you honestly think MLB will get through its 60-game season and the postseason in the World Series?
No.
Okay. So there you go. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, testing is not going to go well because they keep talking about, baseball keeps talking about, oh, well, we have this lab in Colorado. We're not going to take away tests from other people who really need them. The reality is that it's already happened. It's already happened. I've already seen it in other sports, and MLB can't fool me because I know that they're going to run out of tests very quickly, and they're just not, and they're saying we want to test every day. Where are you going to get the tests on a daily basis from?
Wow.
I just think that at the end of the day, someone big name, I hope not, but some big name is going to get it. And that's when the domino effect's really going to start happening.
Yeah. I mean, as you said on your, I think on your podcast, the interest of the owners is not necessarily the interest of the fans.
Right.
And I really do, although I know many baseball fans who are starved for a season and would love to see him play. The reality is that anybody with a little bit of education, pre-Trump, let's not make this political, understands how epidemics work.
Yeah.
And we are nowhere near solving this epidemic at this point in time. And you're talking about, a pitcher holds the ball, he throws it to the catcher throws it back to him. It gets hit the right field, the right fielder catches it and throws it into the second baseman.
Yeah.
And although I've heard conflicting things of late, the virus can exist on inanimate, as it were, surfaces for some indefinite amount of time. And things can happen. And so, it's just, it really doesn't make sense for any of these sports, and baseball's the least contactful, as it were.
Right.
For any of these sports to be trying to do, but the owners just don't want to lose the money.
They certainly
and
I will say this: the owners don't have to be at these games.
No,
they don't. They can just sit at home like all of us and watch and just be like, it's not, no skin off my nose, right?
Right.
Exactly. So. I kind of agree with you. I think that at most they're going to get 20 games in before the season stops. Because again, it's either going to be one of two things. One, a big name player is going to get it and it's going to freak out the entire league, or just so many players at once are going to get it that it's just going to be impossible to continue the season. Because what are you going to do? You're going to have guys who are part of the 60-man roster, if you want to call it that, are going to start playing. For
replacement games.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be like that. So we'll see. July 23rd is the start, and we'll see how they operate. Now, I want to shift to another sport you're very big on, and that is hockey.
Okay.
One of the teams you're a big fan of is a team that I cover on the Devil's State of Mind podcast, and if you haven't yet, go check that out. Is the New Jersey Devils. Yeah, I try to slip that in I slip it in all the time.
Very well
so. Let's talk about the Devils. This is something you and I talk about probably more than anything else off camera. But let's face it, the Devils had high expectations going into this past season, and everything went to, for lack of a better term, they went down the shitter. And they ended up, or at least the first couple months of the season under a head coach you've never been a fan of. We are not going to talk about him. We'll wait till the team calls you again for tickets.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right. But the Devils, obviously, I think they finished the season strong under Elaine Nazardine. They ended up finishing points percentage-wise almost, one win away from actually being qualified to get into the 2014 playoff. But unfortunately, that's not how the cookie crumbles. And they ended up finishing in the seventh spot in the NHL draft this year. So no first overall pick, which the Devils have gotten.
How can they complain about that? Right.
I can't. I don't want to become the Oilers of the East. That's for sure. Right. And then they made the decision just last week that they finally removed the interim tag from Tom Fitzgerald to make him the official general manager of the New Jersey Devils. And on the same day, they hired the 19th head coach in New Jersey Devils history. If you can believe it's only 19.
Wow.
And Lindy Ruff, somebody that you've seen coach for a long time. With the Buffalo Sabres and Dallas Stars, more with I would say the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it with the Sabres. He took them to the Cup final in '99. He won the Coach of the Year in 2006. And for 2 years in a row, he took them to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
And he helped develop a very young Tyler Seguin into the player that he is now. He helped elevate the game of Jamie Benn. And even though the defense of the
And don't forget the goalie.
Kerry Lettinen.
Miller.
Oh yeah, Ryan Miller in Buffalo. Yeah, you're correct on that. And then he went to the Rangers for the last couple of years as an assistant, and Rangers fans were, for lack of a better term, just happy to see him go because they were criticizing him about how he was, handling the defense. Well, guess what? Lindy Ruff is not a defensive coach. So I don't know what you were expecting him, and that's the other thing. So, Pop, what do you think of this new head coach, general manager tandem in New Jersey?
Well, I was not that dissatisfied with Ray Shero. I thought he made a lot of moves, but he made one fatal move that he couldn't back off of, and that was the famous coach, whose name will not be mentioned. I knew there was a lot of optimism going into last season, particularly with PK Subban coming along. It looked like they had enough offensive firepower, but, they just didn't know how to do offense. And so, Alain Nasruddin took over, and all of a sudden they were better. It was not because of his coaching. It was because they didn't have coaching that was trying to drill into them. Don't shoot the puck.
Right.
Don't put the puck on the net.
Right.
It was terrible.
Right.
And you could see PK Subban's exasperation with that by becoming even more of an offensive defenseman than he was billed to be when he came in.
Right.
But in any event, or like when he was in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Devils have a really good amount of offensive firepower.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the hands of an offensive coach like Lindy Ruff, who I thought was as old as I am, but I'm really just
he's several years younger than you.
Younger than I am.
You're not
which
that,
is good.
You're not that old, okay? Relax.
I know, but I'm just saying.
You're not that old.
I'm just saying. And I think, I would put this to the Devils fan. We've been used since the Jacques Lemaire days to having a defensive team. Okay, and I get that.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been working the last decade.
Well, the game has changed dramatically.
And so, my point to, when we were trying to start up a hockey program at a local high school, I was saying, look, I would rather see the team lose, 9-5 than 4-0.
Right.
And so I would say to Devils fans, would you rather win the games 5-4 or lose them 1-0?
Right. I was interviewing a Devils fan on the Devils State of Mind podcast this past week, and he was saying this. He said, "Look, even if we're not winning that much early on in this era, if we're losing games 6-5, 4-3, 5-2." At least we're scoring. At least we're being productive. At least we're showing signs. And look, like you mentioned, the Devils have a lot of talent, a lot of young scoring talent. They have Nico Hischier, Nikita Gusev, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Pavel Zacha to a lesser extent. I know people are not wild about him, but Zacha is another one. There's other guys like that can come in. And look, we also have the draft.
If they were allowed to play hockey the way they know how to play hockey, it'd be a different deal.
Right. And there are some really intriguing prospects in this year's draft that I think could, in a year or two, really help this team take that next step. Even though PK Subban had, I guess you would call it a measly 18 points this year, which was far and away his worst season statistically. Offensively, he's an offensive defenseman. He's always been that way. He's never been a big defensive guy. And I think if you use him properly, like you saw in the second half of the year, it works out in space.
Well, that's the thing. The thing was that in the first half of the year, I think he was shocked at how the team was being coached, and he decided to take on the mantle of the whole offense all by himself, which he's not. He's not, a centerman or a winger or something. He is a defenseman, and so you can't expect the biggest things, but. It was like he felt like he had to pick up the slack in the second half of the year when other people were emerging as offensive players. Then you could see him fitting into that scheme. You understand?
I do.
Devils fans have to get used to the idea that for 20 years they had the greatest goalie in history, and to say nothing of, they had tremendous defense.
Yeah.
I mean, the two Scotts, both Hall of Famers, I believe. Certainly Scott Niedermayer is.
I don't think Stevens is.
I don't think Stevens is in there. Kenny Danico was nothing to sneeze at. Loved Colin White.
You were a big fan of Colin White.
Big fan of
Colin White. You know
White.
who you were also a big fan of? Brian Rafalski for a long time.
Oh, yeah, Brian Rafalski.
Who won 2 cups, by the way, with the Devils.
He was awesome.
Right. But people tend to forget. They say, oh, he played for the Red Wings. Well, he also played with the Devils for many years.
He's from Michigan.
He's from Detroit.
I think he won 2 cups with the Devils, did he not?
He won in 2000 and 2003. Yep.
Right?
And he was on the team. He was on the Devils, I think, till 2007. So he was on the team for quite some time. And that was the beauty of Lou Lamoriello. He made players want to not only come to New Jersey, but play long term.
And what did Lou Lamoriello did? He lived off the defense until he got close to the playoffs. He realized he needed some offensive punch, and he would get in somebody like McGillney, and later on Friesen, although he got Friesen in Millier. But people forget that Claude Lemieux.
Claude Lemieux.
God, I mean, he wasn't there the whole time, and they got him in.
He won cups in '95 and 2000 with the Devils. He got traded to the Devils mid-season in 2000.
Well, so I mean, I got sick and tired of watching, the Devils getting ready to shoot and then second guessing themselves and pulling the shot back. Forget about it.
Even this year, it was
Lindy Ruff will not put up with that crap. No. And not only that, Lindy Ruff will encourage them to play hockey the way they want to play hockey. So I'm looking for a good season coming up.
I think that now that we finally have some sort of expectations of the team, because I think that was one of the faults of Ray Shero, that he never really kind of explained to the fans where the team was development-wise. Yeah. He never said the team was in a rebuild. He never said the team was close to being a cup contender. It was a very, very much a lack of communication. And what I think is good about Fitzgerald is that he's been bluntly honest since he took over, saying, "Look, we need to fill some holes here. We have a long way to go. We got to get this. We got to fix some things." And what I like about Lindy Ruff that I said on the Devil's State of Mind podcast is that he is a guy that's going to push these players to become better than they actually are. He's going to demand a lot from them. Something that I think the coach we shall not name, he's like the Voldemort of the NHL. He's like someone you just don't mention his name. We just don't, especially if you're a Devils fan. I don't know about fans in Nashville right now, but I wouldn't mention it. I think that they needed a new voice. They needed a guy who's going to demand a lot, and I think Lindy Ruff is that. So there's going to be some lesser expectations of the team. I don't think that I don't know if the expectations are going to be just out of the playoffs or maybe a wild card team.
I just want to see him play hockey again.
Right. Would you be satisfied if they finished a point out of the playoffs, but they were a competitive team throughout the season, this upcoming year? No? Good answer. No, good answer. That was a great answer, by the way. Now,
I would not.
Here's another team that we're going to talk about that Pops is a fan of, and he actually lived out in this area for a while and became a fan of the team. I don't think they were there.
No, they were not there when I was there, but I have so many connections to San Jose that when they started the team, I was like,
And fun fact, this man, for my graduation present, he actually took me out there to see this team play in the Stanley Cup Finals, which was my first ever Cup Final game. And I will say, this arena, SAP Center, is one of the best arenas for a hockey game in the NHL.
Don't you think the fans are wonderful? I love
them. They're some of the nicest people I ever met.
Great people.
And that is the San Jose Sharks. And we got a cool background. This is what the SAP Center looks like in a playoff game. Yeah. I mean, this is wild. I mean, and the thing about the arena that people don't realize is that the noise doesn't go up and out. It goes up and it circulates back down to the ice. So you can feel it from the bottom of your skates. And that's great. Now, this year for the Sharks was pretty bad.
A mess.
It started with the fact that they could not re-sign their longtime lovable player, Joe Pavelski, who has really struggled in Dallas and probably is not wild about playing there. I don't blame him. Even though Dallas is a playoff team, it could very well make a run at the cup. I'm just saying. they couldn't keep him. They ended up signing they signed a long-term deal with Erik Karlsson after trading for him the year before. The Sharks came into this year 2 wins away from going to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they were knocked out by the eventual champion St. Louis Blues, which was a tough one of the many years. If you're a Sharks fan, you kind of know what I'm talking about. One of the many years the Sharks have come oh so close and just couldn't get it done. Now, the expectations again this year were to be a playoff contender, and injuries just hit them right from the start. Logan Couture was out for a long time. Tomas Hertl, Timo Meier, Joe Thornton to a lesser extent. Patrick Marleau once again got traded away from the Sharks and now is on the Penguins.
Bye.
Eric, he is not the biggest fan of Patrick Marleau. In the playoffs, that is.
That's right. Well,
Erik Karlsson was hurt a lot, and Martin Jones regressed like crazy.
Yeah.
He clearly struggled. And Pete DeBoer, not only did he get fired, which I think at this point it might have been time for him to go.
Yeah.
But he ended up going over to the dark side and became the head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights after they fired
that's our secret
Gerard
weapon.
Gallant, which I thought it was strange that Gallant got fired because the Knights were in first place.
That was a little crazy.
Now, this is a little bit – this is kind of like when Robbie Fatour got fired several games before the end of the season with the Devils, even though they were in first place.
Yeah, but they were fired by probably the best organizational mind in the history of hockey, if not all of professional
I think it's safe to say that Lou Lamoriello is probably the best general manager in the history of the National Hockey League.
I think that's,
or at least he's up there. I mean, he's up there clearly.
Without question,
he's clearly up there. But the Sharks had a tough year. They brought in Bob Boutner, who used to coach the Florida Panthers. He was an assistant coach with the San Jose Sharks. It looks like the Sharks are most likely going to keep him. Which is fine because he did finish the year somewhat on a high note. The Sharks did not have their
first. Still had a lot of talent.
Right. Well, and the Sharks did not have their first round pick because they traded it to the Senators for Erik Karlsson, and that pick became 3rd overall.
The gift
which
keeps on.
Which is something that I'm sure the Sharks would have loved to have gotten, but I think it would have been worse if it had been the 1st overall pick. I don't know how Sharks fans like myself would have felt after that, but they go into this next season, which at this point, at least reportedly, that they're saying they're going to try to start in mid-December. But, obviously things can change.
Another one, right?
Right. Just a lot of question marks. The Sharks are still a very competitive team. Their window, I'm going to be honest with you, Pop, their window is starting to close.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Okay. Bye, Marleau.
That's the first thing.
Jumbo Joe is going to retire soon, if not this year, the next. I mean,
he already announced he's coming back, so let's.
Okay. Well, after this year.
After this upcoming, next season he's going to be playing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's with the Sharks because he's a free agent technically.
Yeah. But I mean, he's made a big impact. I don't know how much he'll continue to do so. I of course harbor the hope that Pavelski will say, all right, let me go back.
They have to move some money because the Sharks don't have a lot of cap space.
How about we trade him Erik Karlsson? But in any event.
There's too much money there.
And didn't they make a move on the goalie front?
There have been rumors about them being in the running to possibly try to sign Braden Holtby if he ends up becoming a free agent. That's right. We don't know that for a fact because we know that Elias, what is his name? Samsonov, their young 18-year-old goaltender, has really done a phenomenal job in his first year in the NHL, and they may move on from Holtby, who's asking for something along the range of $6-7 million per year.
Right.
And the Sharks, who it looks like at this point, once again, just need one extra piece to maybe get over the hump.
Well, who knows?
And maybe it's Braden Holtby. I don't know. I don't think though. I don't know if Martin Jones is going to be here after this year. There's so many question marks, but
they do have players. They still got my man Couture. They still got
who's now the captain of the
team, Brent Burns. They still got Timo Meier. They still got Hertl. Yeah, they got some serious players there.
And they have
what's his name? LeBanc is doing
Kevin
well.
Well, he is a free agent now. He signed a 1-year deal this past season with the Sharks. He's a free agent. He's actually rumored to maybe sign with the Devils. Really? I did hear about that. But he is somewhat from the area. He's from Long Island, but still, he's kind of from. He's played a lot of his hockey in New Jersey.
And,
but
the other thing that's a sleeper here, that we don't really consider, but the Sharks are in the middle of an area that is awash in money. And if they played their cards right, this could be probably among the most well-financed teams, if not the most well-financed team,
Really?
in the National Hockey League. But I think they would have to get over the idea that they're a small town team, because San Jose is nowadays one of the most important cities in the country. I mean, we have to be honest about that.
They were one of the first cities in California that really started making a difference when it came to flattening the curve in California.
Well, and to say nothing of Silicon Valley.
Right.
Let's get real here.
Right, exactly.
But in any event, I mean, my hope for the Sharks is that they can build on the basis that they have without losing some key players.
Mm-hmm.
They still got Couture and Burns going, so that's good. And,
yeah.
And I mean, they do have some players, so I'm optimistic for them.
Yeah, I
now there's a team that if they didn't make the playoffs but they were close, I wouldn't be that disappointed about.
Right, exactly. It's tough because you kind of wonder, as a Sharks fan, you wonder when is it finally going to be the year when they get over the hump? Right.
I thought it was when we went out there.
I watched. I was in a hotel room watching Game 3 late at night, and I saw them win, and I was all pumped up to go over to Game 4 because I'm like, if they win this game,
it's all tied up.
It's tied up going back to Pittsburgh, and the Sharks ended up winning Game 5 in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Had they won Game 5, they're going home to Game 6 with a chance to win the Cup.
Yeah.
But again, they ran into the wrong team at the wrong time. They ran into the Penguins, and that's just how it goes.
Which were an excellent team.
Oh, no question about it. And they have a chance to get the first overall pick this year. But we won't go into that because I don't really want to. Yeah. Lastly, with regards to hockey, we obviously have the Stanley Cup playoffs starting on August 1st. That's when the play-in series starts. Let's just talk about the play-in series really quick. Actually, let's talk about this, the playoffs as a whole. In your opinion, right now, who comes out of the West and who comes out of the East?
I don't care.
Good answer. That was a great answer.
I don't care. Both of my teams are out of it. I don't care.
Who do you not want to see make it to the Cup final?
Vegas.
Vegas? Anybody else?
Rangers.
What about the Islanders?
Flounders.
Islanders?
None of those teams.
Would you be
Penguins?
Here's a question, and this is a lot of hockey fans are talking about this. What if it was a small market team like Columbus that went on and won the Cup? Would you care? Would it bother you? Would it not?
The thing is about Columbus, like for example, a Columbus-Nashville final, that would be awesome. But Tortorella, John Tortorella is the coach of Columbus.
You like Torts?
I do like him. I didn't like him much when he was coach at the Rangers, but I respected him.
Yeah.
And the more that I've seen him do his number, I do think that he is a good coach. And let's not forget that he did take the I almost said Rays, the Lightning to the Stanley Cup and won it.
He did win it.
2004, and they were not really all that close before he got there.
Right.
And so he can do it. He can do it. And, Columbus has leaped out of irrelevance into a serious team. I think they took a step back last year. But
You talking about Columbus?
Yeah.
Even though they made the playoffs.
They made the playoffs.
And they swept Tampa in the first round.
So maybe I'm missing a year here in my brain, but you're talking 2019.
I'm talking last season, yeah.
Well, that's
Columbus knocked out Tampa in 4 straight.
Right.
Yeah. But that's what we're hoping for with Columbus playing Toronto in the first round. In Toronto, I might add.
Did they take the first 2 games from Washington that year? I think so.
2 years ago, when the Caps won the Cup in the first round, the Blue Jackets had a 2 games to none lead going home.
Columbus is a team. They're coming up.
And what's interesting is that they lost a lot of their big name guys, Artemi Panarin. They lost Sergei Bobrovsky. They lost big name players, but Tortorella just elevated the play of everybody on that team. They have a lot of workman-like players. Elvis Merzlikins, the Latvian goaltender, has played out of his mind since he came into the league. He started his career 12-0.
You know what Torts is good for? He gets the team psyched up emotionally to play.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
in a short season, in a long season, you can't run the whole time on just emotion. You get exhausted.
Right.
But in a short season, you could rally the troops.
Well, it's funny you mention it because I remember watching the highlights from the first round series last season between Columbus and Tampa, and they have every now and then players and coaches mic'd up for different things for TV. And after the first period of game one between Columbus and Tampa, the Lightning were up 3-0. And Tortorella came in, guns blazing, slammed the door and started cussing out every single player and saying, are we here to just get our ass kicked in 4 straight and go home? Or are we here to actually make this a series? They listened to that, came back, won that game, won game 2, and won games 3 and 4 in convincing fashion.
That reminds me of the famous Larry Robinson throwing the bench thing.
Right, exactly. So I think.
But you can't do that for the entire season.
No, you can't.
Players become numb to that. They are men, by the way. These are not college boys, rah-rah. They are men, and they will tire of that.
Right.
But in a short season, maybe.
Yeah. I think as far as if you were to ask me, what do I see happening? Because it's 2020 and this has already been a year where literally anything can happen, I'm going with Chicago versus Columbus in the Cup final. And I will say this, for the first time in a very long time, Edmonton will get to host the Stanley Cup final, albeit they won't be in it. But at least Oilers fans will say that they get to host the Cup final.
And I wanna give a little props to my most hated team, the Islanders.
Barry Trotz.
They have the best executive in the league. I don't care that he's ancient now.
Call it like it is.
They got an excellent coach in Barry Trotz.
What's your nickname for him, by the way? You have a nickname for him.
I got the Trotz.
I got the Trotz, right?
Yeah, but in any event, and they have a good team, and it's unfortunate that they had played so many games before in the place where the Nets play.
In the Barclays Center.
What
a joke.
It was a lousy.
One of the worst places you and I have ever been to for a hockey game. Yeah, we went to a preseason game and it was bad.
So much better. Yeah, the barn is so.
And this is coming from someone who really doesn't like the barn.
I do not.
Yeah, you're one of the few that say I don't like the barn whatsoever.
No, I don't like it at all.
But we'll see. This is going to be again, just like with MLB. There's always the possibility, the very high possibility, that the season could just stop right in the middle of it.
But
cases. But they're in Canada.
Islanders fans deserve, some success. They're really great fans. I got to give it to them.
Well, they are going to get a new stadium, which is good. They're going to obviously
by the racetrack. Right?
Yeah, by the racetrack, and maybe you'll enjoy it. We'll go out to a game and you'll say, "Oh, look at this! I can move my feet." But we'll see. Now we're going to shift over to something that's going to be starting very soon. In fact, the players are already in the bubble and have already had several great stories from the bubble, and that is the NBA. Now, I want to tell you a story really quick, Pop, from a player that's already got in trouble being in the bubble. It's Rashawn Holmes from the Sacramento Kings. Apparently went outside of the bubble to get food because the food has been so bad in the hotel that he actually had somebody deliver the food just outside of the entrance. Now, apparently one of the rules in the bubble is that even just outside, like maybe 5 inches outside of the entrance to the hotel, is considered outside the bubble. So he has to stay in his hotel room and do nothing for an extra 8 days because he did that. That's just one of the examples of it. And apparently there is what they call, NBA players are calling the snitch hotline, a number that you can call to rat out people who are disobeying the rules. And we've already had several big names have COVID-19. James Harden is not with the team right now with the Rockets.
Right.
He is still in Houston. He will be joining the team once his 2 weeks are up. Russell Westbrook apparently got the virus just before the team left. We'll talk about the Nets in a little bit. They really, I think out of all the teams in the return to play have probably gotten dealt the worst luck when it comes to it. But Pop, let me just ask you one specific question.
Yeah.
is Disney really a good place for dreams to come true? Because it doesn't really look like it's going to be that way.
I don't know when the decision was made, but I don't know that they could have picked a worse location to have this happen than anywhere in the state of Florida. I mean, I'm really amazed by that.
Yeah.
They would have been so much better off to do it, for example, in Madison Square Garden. But
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
actually.
I mean, you got enough hotel rooms,
and the virus has gotten
and it's already
better.
Come and
well,
it's gotten better. It's not gotten.
New York is one of the 3 states.
No, it isn't.
Is it? It's no longer.
No, it's New Jersey, New Hampshire, and maybe Maine or something.
Maine?
It's weird. Yeah.
When did New York jump off? Like last week?
Yeah, New York and Michigan were in there for a while, and then they, like Jersey, they kind of on the edge of one, and they go up a little, down a little, up a little, down a little. One thing that's true is that, New York was hit the hard, obviously hit the hardest,
without a doubt.
But they still have a great amount of density and all this other stuff. But Florida's not even trying. To be honest,
Florida doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean they got a
Florida,
governor
Florida
there.
would rather die than
Junior.
Right, exactly. It's awful.
It's a mess.
It's awful.
Secondly, these are not college kids and all that other stuff. So when you have food that bad, some people are going to do something.
Right.
And they should have figured that one out by themselves. It reminds me when Stockton didn't want to stay in the Olympic Village. It's kind of like, come on, you kidding me?
Right.
Well, these guys are used to a higher standard of everything, and then,
yeah,
it's just a mess all the way around. Yes. And besides that, you're playing basketball, and precious bodily fluids and close in breath is the name of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I would expect the NBA to be the first one of all these sports to shut down because of the spread of the virus.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the NBA, there are, since the teams are smaller, salaries are bigger and they don't have to play as many games and all that stuff. So I can see why they would be excited about playing and all that stuff. And, nobody's getting any younger, of course. But, this is, I don't see, they could have just had the playoffs, and just be done with it.
Right.
And don't put it in a place like Florida. That was so ridiculous.
Yeah. I think, when they made the decision originally to go to Florida, this was before the cases started spiking up like crazy. But what the NBA could have done is seen that and said, okay, I think we need to come up with a plan B. That was something that Stephen A. Smith of ESPN said. He said, I'm surprised the NBA doesn't have a plan B. I'm surprised they never thought about. Now, there was some sort of a plan B where it was going to involve the teams that didn't make the 2014 return, where they were going to play a tournament in Chicago. Now, I don't know what the situation is in Chicago with COVID-19. I'm assuming it's not great. And one team already backed out. It was the Knicks, which is understandable in many ways. But, the Knicks were like, no, we're not going to do this. I don't think that's going to end up happening at all. But it would have been nice for the NBA to have a backup plan of another place to go.
Yeah, like Indianapolis.
But I think just like with everything else, there was so much money that was already put into it before.
City.
Right.
Yeah,
there was so much money put into it that they felt that they couldn't go back.
As you said, the interest of the owners.
Right. So it's going to be like every other sport we've talked about today. There's just going to be a lot of question marks, and I don't personally think they'll get through the whole season. I would be shocked if they could, where everybody's safe. And the WNBA is also in Florida. They're in Bradenton at the IMG Academy. And I don't know if they're going to get through their season. There are so many questions. Now, one team in the NBA that I want to talk about that you and I are big fans of, and ironically, we were actually season ticket holders, I think, in 2008, I want to say.
Yep.
And that is the Brooklyn Nets. And let's try to let's try to digest. This has been one of the most head-scratching, I think, seasons as a Nets fan for many different reasons. Number one, the season started with the Nets were able to attract Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to come to Brooklyn. And as a Nets fan, I have never been used to big-name players wanting to come play for the Nets. People like to say that the Nets are an irrelevant franchise and all the negative things, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That might have been the case in one way or another if they were still in New Jersey for really lame reasons.
Although they went to the finals twice, but we won't talk about that.
But we won't talk about that. But
even though the Knicks have been miserable ever since, we won't talk about
exactly. But the Nets coming out of last season, they had made the playoffs.
And we're a fun team.
And we're a fun team with guys like D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, Joe Harris, Damari Carroll, guys like Rodion Kurucs, who's probably one of your all-time – I feel like he's going to become one of your all-time favorite players to remember as a Net. But this year, I'm sure the expectations were a little bit higher. The Nets did not keep D'Angelo Russell. Instead, they did a sign-and-trade with the Golden State Warriors where they, Kevin Durant signed with the Warriors and then got traded to the Nets and vice versa with D'Angelo Russell. Now, D'Angelo Russell didn't even finish half the season with Golden State before he got traded to Minnesota, where he is going to be for a while with his best friend, Karl Anthony Towns. And it is sad because I do miss D'Angelo Russell. He was a clutch player, dynamite three-point shooter.
I much prefer him over Kyrie.
And we all knew that Kevin Durant was not going to be playing this season. Clearly, we knew that was out of the game. Kyrie was going to be playing. It was fun, like that first game where he dropped like 50 points against the Timberwolves. They ended up losing anyway, which tells you a lot.
Right there.
And the season was full of ups and downs. At one point, Kyrie Irving pretty much calling out a lot of the players on this team, saying we're not close to being a championship team. And then it got crazy where, now obviously you're not a big fan of this coach, but Kenny Atkinson did get fired. I think a lot of people were surprised. In your opinion, well-deserved. And Jacques Vaughn became the head coach of the team, and he's 2-0 before, obviously,
I like him a lot.
Quarantine. And he is right now the front runner to get the job because he's basically the only one that has any experience with this team.
Good.
And there's just so much uncertainty with money that they may just go with the quote-unquote cheaper option. And I don't know if Kyrie and KD are comfortable with Jacques Vaughn. There's so much uncertainty. And also, the Nets have 6 to 8 players who have opted out of playing in the return to play. Well, you have Spencer Dinwiddie.
Right.
DeAndre Jordan.
Right.
Wilson Chandler. Kyrie was out already with an injury. KD was out.
Okay.
Kyrie got hurt midway through the season.
Yeah.
And then they signed some guys like Jamal Crawford.
They signed Beasley, and then he's out.
And they signed Beasley, and then yesterday he left because he got COVID-19. Jamal Crawford, they signed Lance Thomas, the former Knick. They basically signed a bunch of former Knick players to the team. And, so this is going to be an interesting situation. One of my favorite characters on the Nets, Theo Pinson, got released, which kind of sucked. And then he got picked up by the Knicks like literally the same day. So that kind of stings a little bit, but that's okay. Pops, what the hell is going on with the Nets?
The Nets, before we go to the Nets, just let me say, look, the NBA should just have thrown in the towel and said it was great fun, but it was just one of those things. We'll pick it up again next season, which is only theoretically going to start in October.
They already determined that they're going to be starting the next season in December 1st.
Yeah.
They could still do that. They could just say, we're waiting until December 1st.
Again, everything I know about epidemiology and everything, I doubt any of these things are going to happen. Mm-hmm. But in any event, whatever. The whole point is that the Nets bet on the come on KD.
Yep.
We have to remember that these guys are very young people, and they set a lot of store by having their buddies around and this, that, and the other thing. And whether it's a good move for the team or not is another story. I would have much rather held on to D'Lo, not had DeAndre Jordan. I think that the funk was coming up, and he was only going to get better. And having DeAndre Jordan just forced the Nets to play him and delay the development. And it's just it's too bad. The Nets were a very fun team to watch. They were up and coming in the 2019 season, and now because they saw the glittering prize in KD, they hamstrung themselves with one guy, DeAndre Jordan, who's old and getting older, and another player whose, in my viewpoint, mental stability is in question.
Well, I had said to you about DeAndre Jordan, I said this, that if the Nets had gotten him 5 years ago and Jared Allen was on the team, fine.
Sure.
Like, great. But they already had an up-and-coming center in Jared Allen who pretty much can block anything and everything. It was frustrating, but you understood why they did it, because Katie and Kyrie wanted to play with them.
Well,
and
that's the problem.
If they didn't have Jared Allen,
that's a young man.
If they didn't have Jared Allen at all and they brought in DeAndre Jordan, fine, whatever. Like, they needed a center.
For a year or two.
Yeah, exactly. There have been reports over the last couple of months that have come out that the Nets were not keen on, or not really high on, wanting to sign Kyrie. They wanted KD, and they knew, unfortunately, that the only way they could, right? If KD had come out and said he wanted to play with D'Angelo Russell, the Nets would have signed KD, and they would have definitely given the max deal to D'Angelo Russell, who deserves it, considering how he's developed from being the criticized player in LA.
These are boys. These are boys. Any way you cut it. In my book, you're a boy until you're 30. And these are all boys. They are not fully matured yet.
Yeah.
It's not like we're talking to Russell or somebody like that who has or Kareem or somebody who has a really mature viewpoint of things.
Yeah.
You're getting a guy, I want to play with my friends.
Right.
Let's have a play date.
Well, the NBA is now all about collusion, and that pretty much, that's
and
the
that's
world we
why
live in.
this thing that's going on in Orlando is a coronation of LeBron James. They'll get another ring. Won't that be wonderful? And maybe he'll be inspired to retire and make movies or whatever he went out to LA.
We'll see. Yeah, it's going to be. For the Nets, I mean, if they're going to continue to try to play, which I think at this point you gotta really start thinking about, dropping out, which is not. Look, we've already had Major League Soccer teams drop out of their play-in tournament because they've had too many cases. The Nets have a handful of guys who have opted out, and they're losing guys even while playing down in Orlando. Yeah. So it's something that
this is going to be happening in all the sports. They start playing the games, people start coming down with stuff.
Exactly.
It's 30 years now. It seems to me it was more recent, but when Magic Johnson was diagnosed with HIV, all of a sudden, the NBA turned into, anytime anybody gets a scratch now and you can see blood, they stop the whole game and make sure, and that's just with a virus, as terrible as it is. I don't want to underplay it, but nonetheless, its modes of transmission are far more limited compared to COVID-19. They shouldn't be playing these games.
Nope.
And everybody except the owners knows it. And I think if the owners were forced to pay these guys, whether the games were played or not, I don't think any player on earth would be saying, let's go do this.
I think if they, I don't know. It's a difficult situation, and obviously as a sports fan and also just as a human being, you kind of hope that they could get through it without any major things happening.
Oh, of course.
But realistically, right. Well, realistically, it's just not going to.
It's already happened.
It's not happening, but we shall see. Now, let's focus on something that has been probably hammered the most out of anybody right now, and that is college sports. I think we have to really talk about this because we've already had several conferences either decide we're not going to play any sports in the fall and just wait till the spring, or we're only going to play conference games as the Big Ten Conference and Pac-12.
That's going to make some kind of difference.
Exactly. Look, there have been so many players in every sport, not just football, not just, the major sports, but other sports where not only were their seasons cut short or canceled, the program is gone. Stanford got rid of 12 different 13 different sports.
Yeah, but they were
all together.
They were mostly minor
sports. But again, still, that's a difficult thing if you're playing in that sport. It's a tough thing to swallow, Sure. So I don't know what kind of question I could really ask you other than this. Like, when do you expect college sports to actually come back? And I'm not talking about let me explain. I'm not talking about football. I'm not talking about basketball. I'm talking about just sports in general in college.
Yeah. First of all, sports in general in college, I would widen the circle to say college. Sports in college started out as an extracurricular thing.
Right.
Then it became a central thing. And, take, for example, my second oldest team allegiance, University of Alabama football. The University of Alabama, academically, over the last several years, has become quite a university. And Alabama football has evolved into its own beast.
Yeah.
Michigan State basketball.
Yep.
From when I went there, it's a different beast. Even Stanford basketball when I went there.
Mm-hmm.
But the deal is that what COVID-19 is doing is unmasking a lot of hypocrisies and contradictions that we have in our normal prosperity allowed to exist without talking about them. But now we have to talk about them.
Right.
I mean, they're talking about all but the most elite universities going out of business. It may not affect the SEC or the Big Ten or any of the Power 5 conferences. Well, it's hard to imagine, say, Oregon State ceasing to conduct classes and stuff in some way.
Yeah.
But, there are a lot of schools like that, Denison University, or Case Western Reserve or something that, there's a good question as to, are they going to make the cut?
That's a good question.
It's unfortunate that there's a lot of what I consider to be magical thinking or wishful thinking regarding this pandemic.
Yeah.
If there were to be a vaccine in 2023, 3 years hence, it will set the record for the fastest vaccine ever developed by far, by a year.
Jeez.
Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
And that has implications all the way up and down. It has implications with respect to our food supply, which we're already seeing. It has implications with respect to money.
Yeah.
It has implications with respect to housing and mortgages and all those kind of things that everybody's just hoping, well, maybe a miracle will happen. Does that sound familiar? Maybe a miracle will happen and we can get back to normal. Well, let me tell you something. It's like the people in the 500 saying, yeah, well, maybe we'll get back to normal and have the Roman Empire again.
Well,
it's just not going to happen.
I've mentioned this before on several occasions on the YouTube channel here and the podcast that the world's going to be a lot different on the other side of this
is a true statement.
Situation. I mean, you're already seeing it. Like, you're already seeing it when you go out and you grocery shop, or even as simple as, well, not as simple, but even if you're going to visit a family member or a friend of some sort, like, you can already see how much it's affected everybody. It's not like one person, there's a bunch of people that are not affected by it. No, everybody's been affected by this virus in one way or another, none of it good. Not well, I mean, there are things that are positive that have come out of this for different reasons, but most of it has been negative. And I look at it and I say, look, if you're a professional, if you're not a professional, if you're a athlete that's getting ready to go to college, there's a chance you might not get a chance to play at all the entire time. You might just be going to school, if that. I've already seen several schools here in New Jersey, like Montclair State announced, we're starting the year. They said starting the year doing online courses. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean,
and you got people taking gap years as well.
I'm very sorry that I like everybody else would love to have a return to things, because what do people do? We all talk about the shift from brick and mortar retail to online retail. Well, that's wonderful, except where are people going to get the money to even shop online? You take my favorite example is you take ShopRite, the grocery store, and if people start to rely on things like Instacart or whatever the heck, and getting their groceries delivered to them and all that stuff, that's, you're trading maybe 100 jobs for 20 jobs. And what are those 100 people going to do? They're not all going to become delivery people.
No.
And that's assuming that we can maintain the food production that we have.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've drifted far afield from the NCAA. But the point is, a lot of people are projecting that college is not going to be the same in general.
No.
And that many colleges are just going to cease to exist. And, I mean, again, it's like this pandemic is stripping away a lot of the fantasies that we might have about things. And so, you get to the point where only the Power 5 conferences are left. And, what's the excuse about going to, Michigan State on an athletic scholarship? No. I mean, we'll have the East Lansing Spartans, and the Happy Valley Lions, and
the New Brunswick,
and the Tuscaloosa Red Elephants or whatever.
Piscataway.
Tuscaloosa Tide.
Right, the Piscataway Scarlet Knights or something like that.
Something like that, because it's not going to make any sense to have a college team when the college is not even operating as a college anymore.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's frustrating in a way if you're an athlete, because
we're not saying anything about college athletes don't get paid.
Well, they're going to start. Well, they're going to, in another year or two, they're going to start getting paid for their likeness in a way. So that's obviously a positive thing. But
but if they're not playing the games, if it's not, who wants the likeness of a guy you never see?
Right, exactly. So, and at the end of the day, you look at it. There's some sports that are practicing, but they already know they're not going to be taking classes in person. So it's kind of like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Why am I at the school if we're not even going to be here?
Well, there are a lot of people that would not go to college were not for scholarships and things like that. And, and it's gonna be a question, especially when other tuitions are down and people can't go out and enjoy the games and this, that, and the other thing.
It's gonna be tough.
We don't have any idea of what it might look like on the other side, especially if we don't get a vaccine very soon. And I'm super pumped that there are so many people trying to do it, and some are in trials now and all that stuff. But it just doesn't make sense that we're going to have something anytime soon. That if our situation lasts, here's a very reasonable scenario to me. So we have the 4 major sports. They're all trying to do something in the next few months. And then what if they all have to shut down?
Right.
Okay. Well, there goes the winter.
Right.
Right. Maybe there goes the summer. We might be in a situation where we don't have a major league baseball season next year, where we don't have a college football season, not just this one coming up, but the one after it, where there's no hockey or basketball in the winter. We may have a situation like that, and we may have it for more than just 2021. It might be 2022 and maybe even 2023. As I say, the world record for developing an effective vaccine is 4 years. Okay, 4 years from now is 2024.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's a
That's if we tied the record. If we got something out in 2023, we'd be smashing the record. It would be like Roger Bannister running a 3-minute mile. Forget a 4-minute mile.
Yeah, it's gonna. We're gonna be in this for the long haul. I can definitely see it. It's gonna be something. It's gonna test the human race for sure.
Well, you know, I think there's a huge opportunity for esports, which was already happening. All these things
already happening, right.
And now they're given a boost by these new realities.
Right. So
esports may become really huge.
Right. So again, at the end of the day, things are just going to be changing quite often, and will definitely be different on the other side of this. The last thing we're talking about here, and if you've stayed with us the whole time, good job by you. We're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to Pop, something that he has hated for a long time, not just in this sport, but in another sport as well. But we're going to be talking about soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, because there's always these different terms. And we have a Napoli logo behind us because Pop is a huge Napoli fan. They actually play today in an hour or so.
Yeah.
They play Bologna, I believe, today. So, and they still have yet to lose a game. Well, they've lost one game.
They lost one game and they drew one.
They've drawn twice and lost once since Gattuso took over for Carlo Ancelotti.
And they won the cup.
And they won the Coppa Italia Cup final against Juve.
Yeah,
so that was pretty sweet.
That's very
as far as finishing in the top 4 to qualify for Champions League, doesn't look like it's going to happen. No. Late August, they're going to be facing Barcelona in the second leg of their Champions League round, and it's tied 1-1, and they could do it. If they win 1-0, they're going to the next round. Most likely facing Bayern Munich, but still, they could get it. But not talking about Napoli, I want to talk about penalty kicks in the sport of soccer. Now, that's how Napoli won against Juve in the Coppa Italia final. I believe that's how Italy won the World Cup in 2006, if my memory is correct.
Might be. It's how they lost in 1990.
So, Pop, the floor is yours.
No, they won. They won outright in 2006.
Oh, they won outright. Okay, I don't.
Yeah,
I was too young to remember that. Our cousin's dog would not let me sit down. He was just right in front of my. Wouldn't let me move, and I was terrified. Anyway, Pop, I'm going to give you the floor to talk about your feelings on penalty kicks in soccer. Go ahead.
It's ridiculous. I don't like the concept in general, not just in soccer, but in hockey. It all comes down to, some kind of weird, quote unquote, skills competition.
Yeah.
At least in hockey, it's like a penalty shot, and the goalie is there, and he's got a chance to block it, and all this other stuff. In soccer, the only realistic chance that you have is when you guess right as to which way he's going to go.
Yeah.
Right, left, or center. And they anticipate it, and they dive in that way, and that's why you see these horrendous things where the goalie dives to the right and the kick goes to the left. And it's just stupid. If you're going to have it, and I understand the realities of you don't want to have 5-hour games and all this other stuff. And of course, I have lots of complaints about the rules in soccer, which were developed by English gentlemen.
You've said it's too British?
Yes.
Yeah, or too European.
It is too European, but it's also a little too gentlemanly British.
Right.
Right. The way they use the clock and everything else is just really,
Yeah.
Hey, it's now the 21st century. Forget about the 20th century when it should have been But in any event,
Yeah.
all that stuff aside, if you're going to insist on having penalty kicks, to put the kick right in front of the goalie there with these people's level of skill is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I think from the goalie standpoint, there is some skill that's involved, but I think a lot of it is luck. You have to guess right. You have to hope that if you go to the right,
that you're
right.
going.
You have to hope that if you go to the right, he's going to shoot to the right, and you're going to stop it. Like we were watching.
That's the only shot you have to stop.
We were watching the Coppa Italia final between Napoli and Juve. First shot. What did the goalie do? He thought he was going to go left. He went left, and he stopped it.
Yeah.
And that's what determined the entire thing because
the entire cup.
Right, because, well, I think also Juve got denied a second time. No, actually.
Yes, they got denied a second
time. They got denied a second time.
I think he just missed totally.
He missed over the bar.
Right.
Which, again, is mind-boggling, the amount of times that close you miss. I know that there's a lot of pressure because you want to try to elevate the ball, but it's
okay.
At the same
Now,
time,
look, if they were to shoot the penalty shot from midfield, that's too far.
Right.
Where they shoot it now inside the box is way too short. There's a lot of real estate between those two things that you could do, and you could also shift the location of the shots.
Would you be more okay with if they did something like what you would see with a free kick right outside the box? Where where you have wall players and then you have to kick it over them and try to get it through. Would that be more sufficient
like
than
a corner kick kind of thing?
Not a corner, but more a free kick where the ball's placed like
I see what you're saying.
Outside the box.
I don't know. I'm more amenable to that. But all I want to say is that the way it's now, it's just stupid. It's
it's rough.
It's
no
betting on a roulette wheel or something.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
There isn't much. There isn't much.
At least in hockey, and I'm no fan of.
You hate it. I know.
Shootouts.
I know.
But at least in hockey, the goalie is there, and he has a shot, no pun intended, to stop what's going on.
Right.
And very rarely do you have a situation where one team scores a goal each of the three initial times they have a shot at it.
You're right.
Very rarely does that happen.
Yeah.
But even that is bad. But
maybe one day they'll fix it. Maybe in Major League Soccer they may decide at some point to try to do something new to make it more interesting. But we'll see.
Too much of this is people feel like the United States for so long was exerting what effectively is sports cultural imperialism. And they don't like the idea of having a running clock that you can stop and all that other stuff. It's just they got to wake up, man. The technology is there. Let's stop this.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of offsides, both in hockey and in soccer, to me is something. Back in the day, back when I was coming up, girls basketball had six girls on the court for each team.
Okay.
3 of them on one side of the half-court line, 3 of them on the other, and they couldn't cross.
Oh, okay.
And it was ridiculous. And
that is really weird.
It is. It's
that
weird.
Sounds really weird. Yeah.
They still have six-person basketball.
I gotta check that out.
A few schools, but it's more just like maintaining a relic for historical purposes, whatever. Other than that, girls are perfectly capable of playing basketball like guys. You don't
just
see
watch
women's
the WNBA.
basketball or yes, and women's college. It was big at Stanford, for example.
Yeah,
when I was there, and it's like offsides is antediluvian.
Yeah.
A nice English gentleman sitting on their lawn chairs in the 19th century. Okay, maybe it made a little bit of sense to keep it nicey nice, but
nowadays
it's stupid.
Yeah, nowadays
it's stupid. Imagine if they had offsides in basketball. There'd be no fast breaks.
Offsides in baseball.
Well, I don't even know what that would be.
I don't know what that would look like. That would look pretty weird.
But all I'm saying is, you get a fast break in basketball, Doesn't count. It's offsides. He wasn't, there wasn't a defender in between him this time. Cut me a break, will you please?
And offsides in soccer is harder to even determine. Just, they have that line when they show the replay.
And they could have the line be electronic if they wanted to do that. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like, soccer, listen to me. It's the 21st century. We're already a fifth of the way into the 20th century. The British were cool in the 19th century. Forget about it. All right? Get rid of it.
Right. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they take that to heart. But with that being said, that is going to do it for this edition of Mofobo Network Presents here on YouTube. First of all, thank you guys so much for watching this. It was a lot of fun to do something different, something I'm not accustomed to doing. It was great to have, Pops on for a little while. And Pop, before I let you go, I kind of do this with all my guests.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to plug or anything you want to, say to the folks, any sort of advice, anything that you want to say to the nice people watching this? The floor is yours.
Great. Subscribe to Mofobo Network. Buy his book.
Yeah.
There's another one coming out soon.
Yeah.
Help my boy out. It makes me happy. You understand? Very good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Pop.
Right.
Again, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you like this, make sure to go like and subscribe to the Mofobo Network YouTube channel, where we post a weekly video about the topics in the world of sports like we talked about here today. We have a podcast called the Mofobo Network Podcast on Anchor and Spotify. Very similar to the YouTube channel. I have guests. We have different topics that we discuss. We just posted another episode yesterday talking about the Mets, possibly, new owners, talking about different candidates and things like that. We'll have another episode out tomorrow on Thursday. We also have a Facebook page called Mofobo Network, where you can check out, all the latest podcast episodes as well as YouTube videos, so you can stay up to date as well. If you want to follow me on my social media, follow me on Twitter at THENVPSHOW and on Instagram at NVPQB11. I also have a podcast called the Devil's State of Mind Podcast. It's about the fourth time that I think I've plugged it today. The Devil's State of Mind Podcast, which is the New Jersey Devils based podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network, where we discuss all things New Jersey Devils and all things hockey and everything in between there. We post a new episode, every single Monday. So you can check it out on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. All you got to do, search Hockey Podcast Network, and you'll see Devil's State of Mind in its own section, and you can stay up to date with the new episodes. We also have a Twitter for the podcast at Devil's State, an Instagram at Devil's State of Mind, and a Facebook page just like Mofobo, where it's just Devil's State of Mind, and you can stay up to date with the new episodes we post every single Monday. And last but certainly not least, like he mentioned just a minute ago, go check out my book on Amazon called JETS, Pain, Pain, Pain. And what is the undertitle, if you don't mind me asking?
The Agony and the Ecstasy, no ecstasy, of the Jets fan.
Yes, it is.
I am one.
And he is one of them. He is one of those Jets fans that
he is not, but
I'm not. And I had the pleasure of getting some great storylines from you and from other Jets fans. It was a great book to write. I'm glad I wrote it. Like he mentioned, I'm in the process of writing another one, and you guys will.
And what's that one about?
Well, let's keep that a secret for now. Right. All I'll tell you is that it's about a certain team in New York that wears blue and orange. Oh. So we could say that. And I think we may have discussed them once or twice today. I'm not sure. Okay. My memory is not great. Anyway, it's on Amazon for hardcover ebook for the price of $19.69. If you're a Jets fan, you probably guessed why I chose that price. So if you're a Jets fan, a football fan, if you know somebody who's one of those, or if you just want to support me, please go check it out and let me know what you think. It would mean a lot to me. And so once again, thank you guys for checking out this edition of Mofobo Network Presents here on YouTube. And as I say at the end of every video and every podcast, no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what hardships you might be dealing with, especially right now with COVID-19, just remember when you wake up in the morning to kick some Mofobo. So thank you all very much. He's Pops. My name is Neil Belpiana, and we will catch you all in the next video. Everyone continue to be safe. Thank you as always to the essential workers out there working, tireless, hours to try to help us get through this very difficult time Your hard work does not go unnoticed, and we really appreciate it. And God bless.